we're in trouble. Global warming, species extinction, water scarcity, the list goes on and on. We know the list. What can we do about it? I'm an artist, and so I decided to start working on these crises by developing a sustainable art studio practice, because an artist studio practice is actually like a small manufacturing enterprise. We purchase raw and component materials. In the case of a painter, these might be paints, brushes, and canvases. And from these, we actually develop an item that will be for distribution or sale, say like a painting, you know. There's a lot of different ways that you can actually create a sustainable art practice. You can conserve water, you can source your electricity from green energy, and you can also purchase carbon offset credits to offset the greenhouse gases that are produced from your practice. So an offset, a carbon offset, is essentially a reduction in emissions over here that offsets the emissions of carbon over here, creating a balance and therefore a carbon neutral situation. So I actually worked with carbonfund.org, and we created a rubric that would make it very simple for artists to click a button and carbon offset their art practice to make it neutral. So, okay, so one of the other things I did, which is maybe not as serious, but certainly a lot of fun for me, is I actually offset the Mona Lisa. So a lot of art historians who asked me not to use their names because they didn't want their reputations ruined by this highly speculative endeavor. But we got a lot of information about how Leonardo worked. While he was making the Mona Lisa, we made an estimation of how much greenhouse gas he produced, and then we purchased carbon offset credits. And so I sent a letter to the Louvre actually congratulating them on the carbon neutral status of their Mona Lisa, and you know, I didn't hear back, just saying. So I've always been an environmentalist, but this push towards sustainability itself really came about because of a large art installation project that I was working on titled Scale. And in Scale, I worked with an incredible array of people in a large collaborative team. There were dozens of artists, students, and community members that were helping us. This is one of the pieces from that. This is actually a drawing that's 26 meters by 3 meters high. It was handmade out of charcoal of the Milky Way galaxy. So the purpose of Scale was to actually demonstrate how infinitesimally small humankind is versus the expanse of the universe. The goal there was to actually reveal the ridiculousness of our petty differences. And it may have been like slightly overambitious, but you know, I really wanted to go after it. But in order to be accurate about the scale of humans and the scale of the universe, I needed the help of some astrophysicists. Now, I had just recently moved to Athens, Ohio, where I accepted a position as a professor of art at Ohio University. And I didn't know anybody, but I found 2 scientists who were willing to meet me. And just before I go to the meeting, my wife said, "Don't scare them." And it's totally valid warning, because artists, you know, we've got a reputation, and it's totally like warranted. So I go to the meeting very calmly, not to scare the scientists, you know. And it was amazing, because artists who think they're passionate need to start hanging out with some scientists, because you're gonna have to up your game. I found really kindred spirits in the form of Dr. Mangala Sharma, who's there in the teal dress on the left, and Dr. Tom Statler, who's in the cool leather jacket. They're talking, by the way, to Dr. Seth Shostak, who's the senior astronomer at the SETI Institute, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And that's a fun guy to talk to. So what happened is that these scientists, who helped me so much with that, introduced me to a group of environmental scientists. And these environmental scientists began to show me the fascinating history of natural resource extraction in Southeast Ohio. So on one of the field trips, we went to some streams. And in these streams, there was a strange orange sludge that went through the streams. And I learned from them that this is caused by acid mine drainage, and that it kills the aquatic life in over 1,300 streamed miles in Ohio alone. And so what happened is that in southeastern Ohio, throughout the first half of the 20th century, strip mining and coal mining with room and pillar methods were very commonplace. And what they did is the companies came in and they clear-cut the forests and they extracted all the soil out, and then they dug tunnels to get the coal. Now, there aren't that many mines left in the area, just a few. And by the 1970s, most of the mining companies had moved on, but what they left behind was disturbed land, abandoned mines, and basically inadequate restoration. So at this point, much of the forest has regrown, but it's very young. But the underground mines continue to leach toxic acid mine drainage into streams, killing aquatic life. And essentially, I was looking at these streams, and some of them are really incredible. This is actually at Truetown, Ohio, and this one seep alone pumps over 1 million gallons every single day of toxic acid mine drainage into Sunday Creek. And this water has a final pH below 2, and it carries over 2,000 pounds of iron every single day. It's like throwing a car in that stream every single day. So I'm out there with these environmental scientists, and I see this, iron orange sludge, and I was thinking like, well, some of my paints are made from iron sludge. I wonder if I could paint with this stuff. And as so often happens, basically, I get a call from somebody who said, would you meet with an engineering professor? They need an artist's help. And I said, yeah, sure. So I go to meet this guy for coffee, and it turns out that his name is Guy. This is Professor Guy Riefler, who's an engineering professor at Ohio University. And he told me all about the fact that these abandoned mines, they fill with water. And when they fill with water, the water and the oxygen react with minerals that have been buried for 300 million years. And when sulfides are present, and these are common in Appalachian coal deposits, high concentrations of sulfuric acid and iron are produced, and that's what causes the acid mine drainage. But I also wanted to show you Guy in his natural habitat, because as a team member, okay, so basically he's got this like hair trigger adventure bug, so you can bait him anytime, just if you ever meet him. Literally anytime, day or night, I'll be there. This is me texting, by the way. So I could just like text him and be like, hey Guy, just thinking about going to this haunted coal tunnel. I heard a boom. Guy's like already out front. He's got extra coffee and a pair of waiters, and he's like, get in! I'm like, thanks, Guy. Cool, Anyway, so it turns out that actually he was having the exact same thoughts as me at the same time, and that's why he wanted my help. So he was starting to ask the questions, could we extract this iron oxide as a valuable resource rather than as a waste disposal? Could treating pollution be an entrepreneurial endeavor rather than a societal cost? So here's the idea, is that we stop the acid mine drainage before it gets to the stream, we extract the iron oxide, turns it into pigment, and then we take the cleaned water and we return it to the stream. And here's how that works.
Our team travels to some of the worst acid mine drainage seeps in the region to find a way to save these streams. Deceptively, as the acid mine drainage comes out of the mine, it's clear, because the iron is still dissolved and in a reduced form. We collect this water and take it back to the lab, where we will test the process to turn this iron into pigment. The collected water goes into our testing apparatus, where we can control things like temperature and pH. Our first step in cleaning the water is to neutralize the pH. We do this by adding a base, which initially turns the water green because of a reaction with the reduced iron called hydrolysis. Next, to remove the iron, we bubble air through the solution. This oxidizes the iron, turning it into an orange, slimy sludge, which is typically what we find in the polluted streams of Southeast Ohio. Now that all of the dissolved iron has precipitated, we can then separate it from the water by settling. By letting the water sit still, the solid particles settle, and you have clean, treated water on the top and concentrated iron precipitate on the bottom. The clean water can be returned to the stream, where it will no longer cause harm, while the concentrated iron on the bottom can be collected and processed into pigment through a series of dewatering and drying steps. At this point, we've taken the orange pollution from the stream and converted it into a valuable pigment.
So, the basic chemistry itself is not revolutionary, but finding a way to extract the iron oxide so that it is a valuable product is. And this is why Guy wanted my help. What makes a good pigment? Hue, light fastness, stability, feel. And I told him that I can definitely help them, achieve those qualities. And I began to help to do that. But I also thought that what we really needed was a sense of beauty. That we actually needed a visual expression that would demonstrate the story of the pigment, its vitality. And so I began to use the pigment in a mix of other standard artist colors to make paintings that talked about the sublimity of nature, as well as the fragility of our current relationship with it. So let me explain. This is essentially what my mind looks like at any moment of any day. And these things are floating around. I don't sleep much. And they're always competing with each other for something. And it usually happens like this. So this is actually a picture of the Ring Nebula. It's 1 light year across, which is about 9 trillion kilometers, apparently. And then I'll see this image, which is the Grand Prismatic Spring at Yellowstone. It's about 300 meters across. And then I'll see this image, which is a diatom, 2 microns across. And my mind is like, dude, what are the grand forces of the universe trying to tell you, man? And then I'll make a painting out of it. So this series of paintings are on aluminum panels, and they're about 1 meter by 1 meter, and they use the acid mine drainage pigment along with other water-based pigments. So again, like I'm thinking about maybe open source mining and chemical pollution and make a painting. Or maybe I read about constructile law, and jet engines and galaxies and things and make another painting. Interestingly, as the pigment began to evolve in its qualities, the paintings also changed in their qualities. So initially, we were only able to get this color out of the iron oxide, which is perhaps best described in scatological terms. Sorry about that. But we were able, in a few months, to get it actually right out of the stream this color. It's far sexier, And so the paintings changed to accommodate that. And then, just in the last couple of months, we've been able to get even more color variety by firing the pigments at high temperatures for short periods of time. So this is what the pigment looks like raw. We've extracted it from the toxic acid mine drainage, and we've dried it and processed it, and this is what the raw pigment looks like. And this is what a painting looks like made with those pigments. But when we fire those same raw pigments at 500 degrees Celsius, we get this color. It's a brilliant burgundy. And so the paintings reflect that. And we also fired it at 1,000 degrees Celsius. And it turned to this, the same pigment turned to this amazing unnatural violet. And let me tell you, that is fun to paint with. I sent a sample of this last batch to a large paint company, Gamblin Artist Colors in Portland, Oregon. And they've agreed to produce a 500 tube batch of our pigment as oil paints. And these 500 tubes of oil paint are going to be distributed to artists around the world. Their resulting artworks are going to be curated into a touring exhibition so that we can broaden the discourse on sustainability. So basically, with little funding and lots of skeptics, we've begun to refine a process that can continuously treat acid mine drainage, restore the watersheds for aquatic life, collect sustainably sourced iron oxide pigment that can be sold to pay for the cost of cleaning up the streams. I know. So we're hopeful that maybe in the next few years, we will have started a whole new industry in southeastern Ohio. And based on our best estimates, we should be able to create a few jobs and actually produce a small profit, all while actually cleaning up a pollution source. When I was putting all this together, I was actually thinking, and I realized that my first art-science relationship actually began a long time ago. When I was in trouble, I was barely a teenager, and I was given a choice between juvenile corrections or counseling. And I chose counseling, not only because I couldn't punch my way out of a wet paper bag, but it was an unusual kind of counseling. Essentially, once a week, I had to travel to the local university and I had to meet with a chemistry professor so that I could learn the true dangers of my own experiments. I know. Super proud of that one. But fortunately, Dr. Carl Bricker actually could tell that I was just trying to find my place in the world. I was just lost in the bigness of the universe and trying to figure out why I mattered. So instead, he introduced me to black holes and infinity, quantum entanglement and relativity. And it's these base mysteries of the universe that still drive my paintings today. So it was actually a scientist that helped me become an artist. And I can tell you that artists and scientists share two things. We share curiosity and failure. Our curiosity drives us to pursue the most unlikely of paths. And those pursuits often fall far short. But in those failures, we pick up one clue that drives us to pick up the chase again. And we do not do this work in isolation. We are incredibly grateful to the amazing variety of people from all walks of life who have lent their labor and time and expertise to our endeavors. If we are gonna create a sustainable future for all, I can tell you from experience that retreating from those different from us and building walls are not options. We need everyone involved. We're gonna have to cross disciplines, specialties, communities. So have a cup with an artist, with a coal miner, with a scientist. It changed my life forever, for better. It'll change yours too. Thank you.